My beloved child, listen to this with trembling attention, because heaven is not whispering right now, heaven is shouting. This is not a casual message. This is not meant for everyone. This is a final warning. Archangel Michael is crying out from the realm of light, and his voice is urgent, sharp, and filled with holy fire. He says, "You are standing at the edge of God's protection, and the next 30 seconds will decide what happens next in your life." Something has shifted in the spiritual realm. A covering that once shielded you is thinning. Not because God stopped loving you. No, never that. But because repeated delays, ignored nudges, and postponed obedience have brought you to a dangerous pause point. Archangel Michael says this pause cannot continue. Right now, you may feel uneasy in your spirit. Your heart might be racing for no clear reason. That is not fear, that is recognition. Your soul knows this message is about you. This is about the house you are standing in spiritually, the decisions you've been avoiding, and the protection you've assumed would always be automatic. Hear this clearly. God's protection is powerful, but it is not something to take lightly. It responds to alignment, humility, and timing. And Archangel Michael is yelling because time is the one thing you think you still have, but heaven says otherwise. There is a door in front of you. You didn't notice when it appeared, but it has been there. It is a door of correction, repentance, and return. You were supposed to open it earlier. You felt the nudge. You told yourself later. You said when things calm down. You said, "I'll deal with it when I'm ready." But Archangel Michael says, this door does not wait forever. What you call delay, the enemy calls permission. This is why the warning sounds so severe. This is why the message feels intense. It is not condemnation. It is rescue. Archangel Michael is not yelling to scare you. He is yelling to wake you up before protection lifts and consequences rush in. Pay attention now. In the past few weeks, signs have been appearing. Small disruptions, miscommunications, unusual arguments, sudden fatigue, spiritual dryness that came out of nowhere. These were not random. They were mercy signals, gentle alerts saying, "Return, adjust it, come back under the covering." But because they didn't feel dramatic, you dismissed them. Now heaven is dramatic. Archangel Michael says there is a difference between being loved by God and walking under God's protection. Love is constant. Protection responds to obedience, awareness, and reverence. You have been loved every second of your life. But protection has conditions, not to punish you, but to preserve you. And here is the terrifying truth Michael is declaring. You are seconds away from choosing whether you stay under that protection or step outside of it. This is not about perfection. This is about posture. There is something God asked you to release, and you held on to it. There is something God asked you to stop, and you kept excusing it. There is something God asked you to confront, and you kept avoiding it. Archangel Michael says heaven had been patient, but patience is not the same as permission. If you are thinking, this feels too intense, maybe this video is exaggerating, understand this. Warnings never feel comfortable to the unprepared. They feel disruptive. They interrupt routines. They challenge false peace. And that discomfort you feel right now, that is the alarm doing its job. You are not watching this by accident. You didn't scroll randomly. You were intercepted. 30 seconds. That is how close the moment is. 30 seconds before the door begins to close. 30 seconds before the grace window narrows. 30 seconds before the spiritual atmosphere around you changes. Archangel Michael is standing guard, sword drawn, waiting to see what you will do next. Will you soften your heart, or harden it? Will you acknowledge, or ignore? Will you respond, or scroll away? Because scrolling away is not neutral. Ignoring is not harmless. Silence, in moments like this, is a decision. Heaven is asking for one thing right now: your attention and your surrender. Not tomorrow. Not after this video. Now. As you listen. As you breathe. As your spirit leans forward instead of pulling back. This message is not here to accuse you. It is here to restore you before loss happens. God would rather warn loudly than let you fall quietly. That is why Archangel Michael's voice sounds like thunder right now. Protection can be renewed. Covering can be restored. Alignment can be corrected. But only if you act while the door is still open. Take a breath. Stay present. Because what comes next will reveal exactly what that door is, why it matters so much, and what heaven expects you to do before the final seconds run out. The warning has been delivered. Now comes the response. My precious one, do not relax yet, because what Archangel Michael is revealing now explains why this warning had to sound so loud. The reason heaven is shouting is because you have been standing in a fragile middle space, not fully disobedient, yet not fully surrendered. And that middle space is the most dangerous place a believer can remain for too long. Archangel Michael says many people lose God's protection not through rebellion, but through slow neglect. They still pray sometimes. They still believe. They still say God's name. But they stopped listening. They stopped responding quickly. They stopped treating divine instructions as urgent. And slowly, almost invisibly, they drifted from alignment while convincing themselves everything was fine. You may recognize this. You didn't wake up one day and decide to walk away from God. It happened in layers. Tip moments. Half obedience. Delayed repentance. Comfort replacing conviction. And while nothing collapsed immediately, you assumed protection was permanent no matter what. Archangel Michael says that assumption is what placed you on this edge. There is something very specific happening right now in the spiritual realm. Heaven is auditing coverings. Not to condemn, but to correct. The light is checking foundations. And anything that has been ignored, hidden, or postponed is being exposed to your conscience first, before it ever reaches your circumstances. That pressure you've been feeling lately, that subtle sense that something is off, that is not anxiety, that is mercy. That is God alerting you before protection thins further. Archangel Michael is not warning you because it is too late. He is warning you because there is still a narrow window to realign. Understand this clearly. Protection does not disappear suddenly. It weakens gradually when warnings are ignored. And the reason this message feels intense is because gentle whispers were already sent, and they were missed. Think back honestly. There were moments when you knew you should pray but chose distraction. Moments when you felt convicted to forgive, but chose silence. Moments when you sensed God telling you to step away from something, but you reasoned your way out of obedience. None of these felt big enough to matter. But Archangel Michael says heaven records patterns, not just moments. The enemy studies those patterns too. He waits for spiritual hesitation. He looks for cracks created by delay. And once he senses a weakening, he presses harder. That's why challenges felt heavy lately. That's why peace felt thinner. That's why protection felt assumed instead of felt. But here is the good news Archangel Michael is declaring with authority. This warning itself is proof that God has not abandoned you. If heaven was done, there would be silence. If protection was fully removed, there would be no alarm. The shout means rescue is still possible. Right now, heaven is not asking you to fix everything. It is asking you to choose alignment again. To say in your heart, God, I hear you. I will not delay anymore. The decision alone begins restoring the covering. But this is also why Archangel Michael says timing matters. Because repeated delays train the soul to ignore urgency. And if this moment passes without response, the next warning may not sound the same way. This is why I need you fully present right now. Not multitasking. Not half listening. Not assuming you'll catch up later. Later is the illusion that weakens protection. If this message is stirring something deep inside you, do not keep it to yourself. Let the act of engaging become part of your realignment. Like this message as a sign that you are choosing awareness over avoidance. Share it with someone who may also be drifting without realizing it. Leave a comment declaring that you are returning fully under God's covering. And if this channel has been part of your spiritual wake-up, subscribe and stay connected, because these messages are not random, they are timely. Your interaction is not just support, it is participation. It signals to your spirit that you are no longer passive. And heaven responds to posture. Archangel Michael says something critical now. Protection strengthens when obedience becomes immediate again. Not perfect, immediate. When you stop negotiating with conviction. When you stop postponing spiritual adjustments. When you stop assuming grace means delay is harmless. There is still something you must hear before the atmosphere fully shifts. Something about what exactly opens the door back into full protection, and it may surprise you. Hold on, because what comes next brings clarity that most people never receive until after loss happens. Beloved one, now Archangel Michael steps closer, not with a shout this time, but with a piercing clarity that cuts through confusion. He says the door you must open is not external. It is not about changing your location, your job, or the people around you first. It is an inner door, the door of agreement. Protection returns the moment your spirit fully agrees with God again, without excuses, without delay, without negotiation. Many think repentance is about feeling guilty. Archangel Michael says that is a misunderstanding. True repentance is alignment. It is when your will comes back under God's will. When you stop defending what God already asked you to surrender. When you stop explaining what heaven already addressed. That is when protection rushes back like a flood. This is why some people pray constantly yet still feel exposed. Prayer without agreement becomes noise. Heaven listens for surrender more than words. And right now, Archangel Michael says God is not asking for long prayers. He is asking for an honest yes. There is a moment in everyone's spiritual life where God says, choose today, not tomorrow, not after you feel ready, not when conditions improve. Today, that moment is now for you. And the reason this feels heavy is because choosing alignment means letting go of a version of yourself that felt comfortable but was slowly drifting. You may feel resistance rising as you listen. Thoughts like, but it's not that serious, where others do worse, where God understands. Archangel Michael says those thoughts are not coming from wisdom. They are coming from delay trying to protect itself. Delay hates deadlines. And heaven has placed one here. Understand this gently but firmly. God's protection is not lost because he turns away. He weakens when we turn inward instead of upward. When self-justification replaces humility. When convenience replaces obedience. But the moment humility returns, protection responds immediately. Right now, you are being asked to do something very specific in your heart. To stop postponing a decision you already know you must make. To stop tolerating something God already highlighted. To stop standing half in and half out spiritually. Archangel Michael says heaven honors decisive hearts. This is why the warning included a time reference. Not because God is cruel, but because urgency exposes priorities. When time feels limited, the heart reveals what it truly values, and heaven is watching to see if you value alignment more than comfort. There is also something else Archangel Michael wants you to understand. Protection is not only about shielding you from harm. It is about positioning you for purpose. When protection weakens, destiny progress slows. Delays multiply. Confusion increases. Not as punishment, but as consequence. God does not want your future delayed any further. That's why this message feels like a rescue mission. Because it is. If you respond now, this moment becomes a turning point you will remember for years. A quiet inner decision that changed everything. You don't need to announce it publicly. Heaven already sees it forming. All you must do is agree. Say it in your spirit as you listen. God, I choose alignment. I release delay. I return fully. Those words, when sincere, activate something powerful. Archangel Michael says the moment those words are meant, the atmosphere around you shifts. Covering strengthens. Clarity returns. Peace begins to settle again. But here is final warning within the warning. Partial agreement will not restore full protection. Saying yes while planning to delay later does not fool heaven. God is gentle, but he is not negotiable. He is inviting you into wholeness, not halfway. This is a sacred moment. Do not treat it lightly. Do not rush past it. Let it mark you. Because what comes after alignment is acceleration. What comes after surrender is restoration. And what comes after obedience is protection renewed stronger than before. Tap I return fully in the comments if this message is speaking directly to your spirit. Lesson code 3149 has just been released. And hear this, chosen one. As this word reaches you, it is also meant to reach others standing at the same edge. When you sow into this mission through super thanks, membership, or PayPal in the description, you are not supporting a channel. You are placing oil on a lamp that guides wandering souls back under God's covering. I hear the Lord say, as you release, I release protection over your house. This is seed and harvest, light and multiplication, obedience unlocking open heavens. Your giving in this moment is not optional. It is prophetic alignment. Step forward now, because heaven honors those who move when the call is clear. Chosen one, now that alignment has been addressed, Archangel Michael reveals what most people never understand until after they fall. Protection does not just return quietly. It restructures your spiritual environment. When you choose agreement with God, heaven doesn't simply patch what was weak. It rebuilds what was compromised. And that rebuilding process is what you are entering now. This is why, even after surrender, you may feel a strange tension instead of instant relief. Many expect peace to come like silence. But real peace often comes like order after chaos. Things shift. Old comforts lose their grip. Familiar patterns no longer satisfy. That is not instability. That is recalibration. Archangel Michael says some relationships will feel different now. Not because people change, but because your spirit did. Conversations that once felt normal may suddenly feel draining. Environments that once felt safe may feel heavy. This is not judgment. This is discernment returning. Protection sharpens awareness before it stabilizes comfort. You are being repositioned. This is important to hear. Do not mistake discomfort for danger. When protection strengthens, it exposes what no longer belongs near you. God is not removing joy. He is removing interference. But interference often looks like familiarity, which is why letting go can feel unsettling at first. Archangel Michael says many believers retreat at this stage because they confuse pruning with loss. They assume something is wrong because things no longer feel the same. But the truth is, things were not meant to stay the same. Growth requires separation before expansion. Right now, heaven is adjusting your sensitivity. You may notice your conscience speaking louder, convictions coming faster, inner checks happening sooner than before. This is not restriction. This is refinement. Protection becomes strongest when awareness becomes sharp. You are also being asked to guard your agreement carefully. Alignment is not a one-time decision. It is a posture you maintain. The enemy knows he cannot overpower protection, so he tries to erode it slowly through small compromises, distractions, rationalizations, spiritual numbness disguised as rest. Archangel Michael says this is why vigilance matters now. Not fear-based vigilance, awareness-based vigilance. The kind that notices when prayer becomes mechanical, when gratitude becomes routine, when obedience becomes conditional again. These are early signals, not failures. Do not condemn yourself for noticing them. Celebrate that you can see again. Another truth must be spoken clearly. Protection does not mean absence of challenge. It means presence of authority. Storms may still appear, but they will no longer have permission to define outcomes. You will notice that what once overwhelmed you now passes through you without taking root. This is how you will know protection is restoring fully. Your reaction time changes. You recover faster. You discern sooner. You respond instead of react. You no longer spiral the way you used to. That is not emotional strength. That is spiritual covering doing its work. Archangel Michael also warns you not to explain this season to people who cannot understand it. Not everyone is meant to interpret your obedience. Some will mislabel your boundaries as distance. Some will misunderstand your silence as pride. You not overclarify what God already confirmed. Protection grows when obedience becomes quiet and consistent. There is also a testing that comes after surrender, not to trap you but to anchor you. Situations will arise that look familiar, old temptations, old thought patterns, old emotional triggers. They are not returns, they are checkpoints. Heaven is confirming whether your agreement was real. Do not panic when these moments appear. Passing them does not require effort. It requires remembrance. Remember what you chose. Remember why you aligned. Remember how close you were to losing covering. Memory strengthens resolve. Archangel Michael says many people fail not because they are weak, but because they forget too quickly. They allow comfort to erase urgency. Do not let comfort make you careless. This is also a season where your words matter deeply. Complaints weaken atmosphere. Gratitude fortifies it. What you speak now either reinforces protection or thins awareness. Choose language that agrees with heaven, not emotion. You are not being watched in a threatening way. You are being guarded in a purposeful way. The sword Archangel Michael holds is not against you. It is around you. But swords require boundaries. They protect space, not chaos. Stay within the space God is defining. The coming days will reveal subtle confirmations, small victories, quiet reassurance, moments of peace that feel different, deeper, steadier, less emotional. That is protection settling in. Do not chase signs. Just remain aligned, because the next revelation will explain why this restoration was so urgent and what was approaching that you did not see. Beloved one, now Archangel Michael reveals something weighty, something that explains why heaven moved with such urgency. He says there was an unseen convergence forming around you, not to destroy you outright, but to pressure you into surrendering ground slowly. It was subtle, strategic, quiet, and that is why it was dangerous. Many think attacks always come loud and obvious, but the most effective spiritual pressure arrives disguised as normal life. Extra fatigue, lingering confusion, emotional heaviness with no clear source, disruptions that feel small enough to tolerate. Archangel Michael says this convergence was designed to wear you down, not knock you out. If you had continued in delay, the pressure would have increased incrementally. Not enough to alarm you, but enough to drain clarity. Not enough to break you, but enough to dull discernment. Over time, you would have begun calling spiritual erosion just how things are. That is what heaven intercepted. This is why the warning was sharp. Because once erosion becomes normalized, protection does not vanish suddenly. It is surrendered quietly. And God refused to let that happen to you. Archangel Michael says something important here. The enemy does not need to overpower protected people. He only needs them to stop paying attention. Distraction is more effective than force. Comfort is more dangerous than fear. And routine can become a veil if awareness fades. You were approaching a point where discernment would have been delayed just enough for wrong doors to look harmless, for wrong advice to sound reasonable, for wrong timing to feel acceptable. That is how destiny detours begin, not with rebellion, but with misalignment justified as logic. But now, the path has been interrupted. You may notice that situations which once felt neutral now feel clearly defined. That is not your imagination. That is clarity returning. Protection sharpens contrast. You begin to see what drains you versus what strengthens you, what pulls you inward versus what draws you upward. Archangel Michael says this clarity is a gift, but it must be honored. Do not override it with overthinking. Do not silence it with busyness. Discernment speaks softly but precisely. When you feel a quiet check in your spirit, respect it. That is protection, guiding you in real time. Another thing is being restored now, spiritual authority. Not dominance over others, but stability within yourself. You will find it easier to say no without guilt, easier to pause before reacting, easier to walk away from conversations that feel wrong. That is not emotional coldness. That is boundaries aligned with heaven. Some people will not recognize this version of you. They benefited from your overextension, your silence, your delays. When protection returns, access changes. And when access changes, reactions appear. Do not internalize resistance as failure. Often, resistance confirms alignment. Archangel Michael also says you must guard against one subtle trap now. Spiritual pride disguised as relief. When things begin to stabilize, the temptation is to assume the danger has passed completely. But protection is not a trophy you display. It is a covering you remain under. Stay teachable. Stay responsive. Stay soft. There will be moments when old habits try to reassert themselves. Thoughts like, I can ease up now, or I've done enough. Those thoughts are not sin, but entertaining them too long can reopen gaps. Consistency matters more than intensity. You do not need to be extreme. You need to be faithful. This season is about strengthening roots, not chasing experiences. About deepening alignment, not seeking validation. Archangel Michael says heaven is far more invested in your stability than your visibility right now. You may also notice dreams becoming clearer, or intuition becoming sharper. That is because protection restores communication. God speaks more clearly when interference is removed. Pay attention to impressions that come with peace, not urgency. Heaven does not rush you into panic. It leads you into clarity. If you feel led to rest more, honor that. If you feel led to pray differently, follow that. If you feel led to disconnect from noise, trust that. Protection often guides through subtle shifts, not dramatic commands. And hear this carefully. Do not revisit old environments just to prove you are strong. Strength does not need to test itself. Wisdom avoids what no longer serves purpose. Archangel Michael says many people lose ground trying to confirm growth instead of trusting it. Let growth speak for itself. As protection settles, you will begin to sense a quiet confidence returning. Not excitement, not hype, just steadiness. That is how you will know this restoration is real. Emotional highs fade quickly. Stability endures. The urgency that brought you here will now transform into discernment that keeps you here. Beloved one, Archangel Michael now speaks about maintenance, because restored protection must be sustained intentionally. Many people experience moments of rescue, but few understand how to remain under covering long after the urgency fades. Heaven does not want you visiting protection occasionally. God wants you dwelling in it. The first thing Archangel Michael makes clear is this: protection weakens fastest when awareness becomes casual. Not sinful, not rebellious, casual. When spiritual life turns into background noise instead of central posture. When prayer becomes optional instead of relational. When gratitude fades into habit rather than reverence. This is why consistency matters more than emotional intensity. You do not need dramatic encounters every day. You need daily alignment. Small, repeated choices that say, God, you still lead here. Those choices build spiritual muscle. They reinforce covering quietly, but powerfully. Archangel Michael says many believers lose ground because they wait for feelings to guide obedience. But protection responds to decisions, not emotions. There will be days you do not feel spiritually alert. That does not mean alignment has ended. It means discipline must carry you when emotion rests. Another key truth must be spoken. What you feed your mind now directly affects your covering. Constant exposure to noise, fear-based information, comparison, or negativity dulls discernment. It does not make you sinful. It makes you distracted. And distraction is one of the fastest ways awareness fades. You are not being told to isolate yourself from life. You are being asked to curate what has access to your attention. Protection strengthens when your inner environment supports peace instead of chaos. Archangel Michael also highlights the power of response time. When God nudges you now, respond quickly. Not perfectly, quickly. Speed and obedience closes doors before interference can form. Delayed obedience creates gaps, even when intentions are good. This does not mean rushing decisions. It means honoring clarity when it comes. If something is clearly out of alignment, do not negotiate with it. If something is clearly affirmed, do not delay stepping into it. Momentum matters. Another habit that reinforces protection is humility and correction. When God points something out, do not defend yourself internally. Do not explain it away. Simply agree and adjust. Heaven responds rapidly to teachable hearts. You are also being reminded to stay connected spiritually. Isolation weakens covering over time. Not physical isolation, but spiritual isolation. When you stop engaging, stop listening, stop participating. God designed alignment to be reinforced through connection. That is why staying engaged here matters. Liking this message, commenting with agreement, sharing it with someone who needs it, subscribing to this channel. These are not empty actions. They keep you attentive. They remind your spirit that you are choosing awareness over drift. They also help this message reach others who may be standing where you once were. If this message has been grounding you, stay connected. Do not disappear once peace returns. Consistency keeps covering strong. Archangel Michael also says you must watch for subtle pride disguised as independence. Thoughts like, I can manage now, or I don't need reminders anymore. Those thoughts sound confident, but they quietly disconnect support systems God put in place. Protection thrives in dependence, not self-sufficiency. Another important element is rest. Burnout weakens discernment faster than temptation. When you are exhausted, everything feels heavier, louder, and more confusing than it actually is. Rest is not laziness. It is maintenance. God often restores protection by restoring rest. If you have been pushing yourself relentlessly, hear this as permission to slow down. Not quit. Slow down. Stillness sharpens hearing. Silence clarifies guidance. You will also notice that peace now comes with responsibility. When something disrupts it, do not ignore that signal. Ask why. Adjust quickly. Peace is not fragile, but it is communicative. Archangel Michael says the people who remain protected long-term are not the ones who never face pressure. They are the ones who respond early. They do not wait until warnings become alarms. They adjust when nudges appear. That is wisdom. Before this moment passes, let this message anchor you. Engage with it. Let it mark your posture. And keep listening, because what is coming next explains how to recognize early warning signs before protection ever feels threatened again. Hold on. This next revelation brings clarity that can save you years of unnecessary struggle. Beloved one, Archangel Michael now reveals the signs that appear before protection ever feels threatened again. This is knowledge meant to keep you secure long after this moment passes. Most people only recognize danger once peace is already shaken. But heaven teaches its children to recognize shifts while they are still small. The first sign is subtle inner resistance. Not temptation, resistance. Moments when doing the right thing suddenly feels heavier than it used to. When prayer feels postponed instead of desired. When obedience feels negotiable instead of clear. Archangel Michael says this resistance does not mean alignment is lost. It means attention is drifting. Drift always begins internally. Another early signal is emotional overreaction to minor things. When small inconveniences trigger outsized frustration. When simple delays feel overwhelming. When patience thins without clear cause. This is not a personality flaw. It is a sign that spiritual reserves are being depleted and need replenishment. Protection does not vanish when this happens. He sends alerts. You may also notice an increase in mental noise, overthinking, second-guessing decisions that were once clear, replaying conversations, questioning your own discernment. Archangel Michael says clarity fades when stillness is neglected. The solution is not effort, it is quiet alignment. Silence restores signal. Another warning sign is spiritual isolation disguised as independence. When you feel less inclined to engage, less interested in reminders, less receptive to guidance. Not because you are busy, but because you feel fine. That sense of being fine is often where vigilance softens. Protection is maintained through awareness, not assumption. Archangel Michael emphasizes something important here. None of these signs are failures. They are invitations. Heaven does not punish early warning signs. It uses them to redirect. The moment you notice them and respond, covering strengthens instead of weakens. The danger only comes when signs are ignored repeatedly. Another signal appears in how you handle conviction. When correction feels irritating instead of helpful. When reminders feel intrusive instead of loving. That shift indicates pride quietly rising, not arrogance, but self-protection. The kind that resists adjustment to preserve comfort. Humility restores covering faster than any prayer. You may also sense changes in appetite, not physical, but spiritual. A lack of hunger for what once nourished you. Less desire for truth. Less patience for depth. Archangel Michael says hunger loss is not permanent. It returns when distractions are reduced. Ask yourself gently, what has been feeding my attention lately? Protection also signals through your speech. When negativity increases. When sarcasm replaces sincerity. When complaints feel easier than gratitude. Words shape atmosphere. Atmosphere affects awareness. Awareness maintains covering. None of this is meant to burden you. It is meant to empower you. The greatest deception is believing protection requires constant effort. It does not. It requires responsiveness. Honest acknowledgement. Willingness to pause and realign. Archangel Michael says the people who stay protected longest are not the strongest. They are the most responsive. Another truth must be spoken. Not every uncomfortable season means something is wrong. Sometimes growth feels tight before it feels free. Discernment helps you distinguish between pruning and warning. Pruning brings peace beneath discomfort. Warning brings agitation beneath normalcy. Learn the difference. When discomfort is paired with clarity, it is growth. When comfort is paired with confusion, it is drift. This understanding alone will protect you more than you realize. You are not expected to live hypervigilant. You are invited to live attentive. There is a difference. Attentiveness is calm. Hypervigilance is anxious. Heaven leads through peace, not pressure. If ever you feel rushed into decisions, pressured into reactions, or forced into urgency without clarity, pause. Protection does not panic you. It steadies you. Archangel Michael also reminds you that protection includes correction through people. Sometimes guidance comes through unexpected voices. Not all feedback is attack. Not all disagreement is opposition. Discern before dismissing. Correction received humbly strengthens covering. Correction rejected defensively thins awareness. You are being trained now, not tested. It will be non-offended. Heaven invests this kind of teaching only in those it intends to keep. And understand this clearly. The warning that brought you here was not about punishment. It was about preservation. God intervened because your future carries weight. Because your assignment matters. Because losing protection would have delayed more than comfort. It would have delayed purpose. Now you are being shown how to guard what was restored. Beloved one, Archangel Michael now speaks of the future that was waiting behind this moment of obedience. He says what was at risk was not only protection, but timing. Heaven works with seasons, and when alignment is delayed, seasons overlap, causing unnecessary struggle. That is why this warning arrived exactly when it did. There is a next step prepared for you. Not vague, not symbolic, specific. But that step could not be activated while protection was thinning, because exposure and advancement cannot coexist. God never moves his children forward uncovered. He secures them first. Archangel Michael says this is a transition point. What you have been learning internally is about to require external movement. Not sudden chaos, but intentional action. You may notice ideas resurfacing that you once abandoned. Prompts returning that you thought had passed. Opportunities reappearing with new clarity. These are not coincidences. They are delayed assignments re-entering your path. However, heaven is clear. Acceleration only follows maintained alignment. God will not rush you forward just because you are eager. He moves when posture is stable. Speed without stability creates collapse. That is why this season emphasizes obedience over excitement. You may feel an urge to explain yourself, to announce your changes, to justify your boundaries. Archangel Michael says restraint is wisdom here. Let fruit speak. Let consistency testify. Heaven defends what it advances. Another thing will become clear now. Certain doors will close without effort. You will not need to force separation. What does not belong in your next season will naturally lose access. You not chase what exits. You not grieve what God removes. Protection often works by subtraction before multiplication. You are also being repositioned spiritually. Prayer will feel less like pleading and more like agreement. Decisions will feel clearer, not because options disappear, but because discernment sharpens. This is a sign of authority returning. Authority does not shout. It settles. Archangel Michael says, be mindful of impatience now. When things begin to align, the temptation is to rush outcomes. But impatience can reopen gaps. Move deliberately. Listen fully. Obedience that is rushed can become misdirected. You are not behind. You are on time. Now. This is also a season where your obedience affects others more than you realize. Your alignment becomes a covering influence. Not everyone around you is protected at the same level, but your posture creates space for peace to enter shared environments. This is why God intervened loudly. The impact extends beyond you. Do not minimize that. At the same time, do not take responsibility for what others refuse to address. Protection is personal before it is communal. You cannot surrender on behalf of someone else. Maintain compassion without carrying weight that is not yours. Archangel Michael also warns against nostalgia. Do not romanticize past seasons that were comfortable but misaligned. Growth always costs familiarity. Looking back too long can slow forward movement. When God restores protection, He also restores vision. You will begin to see further ahead than before. Not in detail, but in confidence. A quiet knowing that the next steps will be provided when needed. That is faith grounded in alignment. And now hear this carefully. Heaven says this moment is marked. It will be referenced in your future. A time when you chose to respond instead of delay. When you listened instead of ignored. When you aligned instead of assumed. Type I stay aligned in the comments if you receive this word. Blessing code 8821 is now activated. And now, hear this instruction flowing directly from what was just released. This word is reaching lives at the edge because light is being sent where darkness was quietly advancing. When you give through super thanks, membership, or PayPal in the description, you are sowing oil into the lamp God is using to warn, realign, and restore His children. I hear the Lord say, those who help carry this light will never lack covering. Your giving is not a donation. It is obedience meeting opportunity, seed meeting soil, light expanding territory. Move now, because this is a moment heaven is watching. Beloved one, Archangel Michael now turns your attention inward again, because forward movement without inner stability creates repetition, not progress. He says the next season will test not your faith, but your consistency. Not your belief, but your discipline. Many people step into new opportunities only to recreate old patterns because inner alignment was assumed instead of guarded. You are being prepared differently. This season is not about dramatic breakthroughs. It is about quiet reinforcement, strengthening foundations so that when movement increases, nothing collapses under pressure. Heaven is building endurance into you, not just excitement. Archangel Michael says something important here. Do not confuse silence with stagnation. Just because things are not loud does not mean nothing is happening. Roots grow in silence. Foundations are laid underground. What feels slow is often what makes growth permanent. You may notice fewer emotional highs now, fewer dramatic spiritual moments. That does not mean God is distant. It means He is stabilizing you. Emotional dependence is being replaced with spiritual maturity. You are learning to walk without constant reassurance. This is a gift. Another shift you will notice is discernment in decisions. You will feel less impulsive, less reactive, more thoughtful. This is not hesitation. It is wisdom developing. Archangel Michael says many delays in life come not from disobedience but from premature action. Acting before clarity creates detours. Waiting for alignment preserves momentum. You are also being taught to trust internal peace over external pressure. Voices will appear, opinions, advice, urgency from others. Not all of it will be wrong, but not all of it will be for you. Protection does not remove voices. It sharpens your ability to filter them. If something pushes you into fear, pause. If something pressures you into haste, pause. If something feels heavy without clarity, pause. Heaven guides with peace, not pressure. You will also experience a shift in how you handle disappointment. Things may not move as fast as you expect. Outcomes may not arrive exactly how you imagined. But instead of frustration, you will notice acceptance paired with trust. That is maturity. That is protection at work. Archangel Michael says disappointment no longer defines direction for you. Discernment does. Another important change is happening in how you see yourself. Old labels are losing authority. Old narratives are weakening. You are no longer defined by past mistakes or former limitations. But do not rush into a new identity performance. Let identity settle naturally. You do not need to prove growth. You need to live it. This season also requires guarding your inner dialogue. What you say to yourself matters deeply now. Self-criticism weakens resolve. Self-awareness strengthens it. Speak to yourself with truth, not harshness. Correction without compassion leads to burnout. Heaven corrects firmly, but never cruelly. You may also feel called to simplify. Less noise. Fewer distractions. More intentional choices. This is not restriction. It is refinement. Simplification creates space for clarity. Clarity preserves alignment. Archangel Michael warns against comparison. Watching others advance faster can stir impatience. But timing is individual. Comparison clouds discernment. Your pace is calibrated to your purpose. Do not measure progress by speed. Measure it by peace. You will begin to recognize that obedience is no longer draining. It becomes lighter, more natural. That is how you know alignment has deepened. What once required effort now flows from understanding. But remain attentive. Comfort is not the same as completion. Do not stop adjusting just because things feel better. Maintenance continues even when peace returns. This is where many people slip. They relax too much once stability arrives. But you are being trained to remain aware without anxiety. present without pressure. Archangel Michael says your future will require sustained clarity, decisions that affect others, influence that extends beyond you. That is why your foundation is being strengthened quietly now. What is coming next will require trust in God's timing more than your own understanding. You will be asked to move when it makes sense spiritually, not logically. This is why discernment is being sharpened. The warning that brought you here has now transformed into preparation. You are no longer being rescued from loss. You are being prepared for responsibility. Beloved one, Archangel Michael now speaks about timing, because knowing when to move is just as important as knowing what to do. Many people miss God's best not because they disobey, but because they act too early or too late. Protection does not only shield you from harm, it guards your steps so you arrive at the right moment. You are entering a phase where windows open briefly. Opportunities will not linger the way they once did. Not because God is rushing you, but because you are being trusted with discernment. Heaven assumes maturity now. Signals will be clear, but they will require attentiveness. Archangel Michael says the clearest indicator of correct timing is peace paired with clarity. Not excitement alone, not pressure alone. Peace that feels steady and clarity that feels settled. When both are present, movement is authorized. Be careful here. Emotional excitement can imitate spiritual confirmation. Excitement rises quickly and fades quickly. Peace endures. If something feels thrilling but unstable, wait. If something feels calm but clear, proceed. You will also notice that correct timing often feels inconvenient. It may interrupt routines. It may require adjustment. It may not align perfectly with personal comfort. That does not mean it is wrong. Obedience often stretches comfort, but it never violates peace. Archangel Michael says, do not wait for everything to make sense. If you do, you will miss moments designed to be entered by faith. Clarity does not always come with full explanation. Sometimes it comes with enough light for the next step only. This is where many hesitate. They want guarantees. But protection does not guarantee comfort. It guarantees guidance. Another truth must be spoken clearly. When the moment to move arrives, hesitation becomes costly. Not sinful, costly. Delay after confirmation can close doors that obedience would have opened. Heaven does not punish delay, but seasons do not pause indefinitely. You will know when the moment arrives because resistance will be minimal, even if fear exists. Fear can coexist with faith. Resistance cannot coexist with peace. Learn that distinction. Archangel Michael also warns against outsourcing discernment. Seeking counsel is wise, but seeking permission from people who are not aligned with your calling can dilute clarity. Not everyone understands the timing God assigns to you. Listen respectfully, but obey decisively. This season will require courage, not recklessness. Boldness, not impulse. Trust, not haste. When these are balanced, movement becomes powerful. You may also notice that once you obey, confirmation follows quickly. Not always immediately, but clearly. Small affirmations. Unexpected ease. Doors opening where resistance once existed. That is protection moving with you, not just around you. But hear this carefully. Do not chase confirmation before obedience. Confirmation often follows action, not precedes it. Waiting for too many signs can become another form of delay. If this message is clarifying something you've been wrestling with, engage with it now. Like this video as a declaration that you are choosing discernment over confusion. Share it with someone who is standing at a crossroads and needs clarity. Leave a comment acknowledging that you are ready to move when God signals. And if this channel has been guiding you through these moments of alignment, subscribe and stay connected. These messages are meant to meet you at critical intersections, not after the moment has passed. And hear this gently but firmly. This is one of those intersections. Archangel Michael says some of you have been circling the same decision for too long. Not because you lack faith, but because you fear misstepping. Protection is telling you now. Stillness has served its purpose. Preparation is complete. Do not confuse waiting with obedience once clarity arrives. At the same time, do not manufacture movement to feel productive. Action outside of peace leads to correction later. Stillness inside peace is wisdom. Movement inside peace is power. You are learning to walk in rhythm with heaven. Not ahead, not behind. This is why the earlier warning was so intense. Because misalignment would have caused mistimed action. And mistimed action creates consequences that obedience could have avoided. Now, timing is being restored. Pay attention in the coming days. Conversations will carry weight. Ideas will resurface with urgency. Opportunities will appear with unusual clarity. Do not dismiss them casually. Do not overanalyze them either. Hold them before God briefly, then act as peace confirms. And before you move, remember this. Obedience does not require understanding the entire path. It requires trusting the one who sees it. Beloved one, Archangel Michael now speaks about what happens after obedience turns into movement, because many people are prepared to step forward, but few are prepared for what follows. Advancement under God's protection is not loud chaos. It is quiet authority. And authority requires trust deeper than excitement ever could. Once you move in correct timing, protection does not disappear behind you. It shifts position. Instead of standing only as a shield, it moves ahead as a pathsetter. What once blocked you begins to make room. What once resisted you begins to realign. This is not because circumstances suddenly became kind, but because heaven is now authorizing your steps. You may notice that challenges do not vanish. Instead of confusion, you face responsibility. Instead of fear, you face decision. Instead of uncertainty, you face weight. This is not pressure meant to overwhelm you. It is trust being placed upon you. Archangel Michael says many people misunderstand this stage. They think something is wrong because movement brings seriousness. But seriousness is not heaviness. It is focus. When destiny activates, frivolous distractions fall away naturally. You become more intentional, not because you are forcing discipline, but because purpose sharpens attention. This is also where trust is refined. God will not explain every step ahead. He will confirm direction, then ask you to walk. If he explained everything now, fear would try to manage outcomes instead of faith receiving guidance. Partial vision protects you from control. You are learning to move without needing constant reassurance. There may be moments when you ask yourself, am I still protected? Not because danger appears, but because silence increases. Understand this clearly. Silence does not mean absence. Often, silence means stability. When systems are functioning correctly, alarms are quiet. Protection is loud only when danger is near. When alignment is steady, heaven rests. Archangel Michael says this is where many people sabotage progress by seeking old emotional confirmations. They try to recreate the urgency that launched them, forgetting that urgency was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to awaken, not to sustain. And now, peace sustains you. Another shift you will notice is that prayer changes tone. Less desperation, more dialogue, less pleading, more agreement. This is maturity. God is not pulling away. He is drawing you closer in trust. You may also feel less need to explain your path to others. Validation becomes unnecessary. Approval becomes irrelevant. This is not pride. It is clarity. When you know where you are going, you no longer argue with those who cannot see it. Archangel Michael warns you here. Do not let unfamiliar calm make you doubt your direction. Many people mistake peace for complacency because chaos once felt normal. But chaos was never your covering. Protection was. Stay grounded in that truth. You are also entering a phase where obedience produces ripple effects. Decisions you make will affect others. Words you speak will carry weight. Your presence will shift rooms quietly. This is why integrity matters now more than ever. Small compromises carry larger consequences at this level. Not because God is strict, but because influence amplifies impact. Protection remains, but responsibility increases. Archangel Michael says this is not meant to scare you. You are not being set up to fail. You are being trusted to steward alignment. And heaven only entrusts those who have proven responsive. You will also notice that recovery time shortens. When mistakes happen, and they will, correction comes quickly, gently, and clearly. You adjust faster. You learn quicker. You move on without shame. That is protection working within you, not just around you. Do not dwell on missteps. Do not rehearse regret. Forward movement requires forward focus. This stage requires patience with process. Some results will unfold gradually. Seeds planted earlier will take time to surface. Resist the urge to dig them up to check progress. Trust the soil. Trust the timing. Archangel Michael says impatience here can undo what obedience established. Not permanently, but painfully. Waiting with trust is as much obedience as movement itself. You are not being tested to see if you deserve this. You are being trained to sustain it. Another important truth: God's protection does not mean you will always feel strong. There will be days of fatigue, days of doubt, days of questioning. Those days do not mean alignment has ended. They mean you are human. On those days, do not withdraw. Do not isolate. Do not assume something is wrong. Simply rest, recalibrate, and continue. Protection holds you even when you feel tired. This is the season where endurance is formed. Not dramatic endurance, but quiet faithfulness. Showing up, staying aligned, listening closely, moving steadily. And understand this: the warning that began this journey was not about losing something. It was about qualifying for what comes next. The final message will seal this entire journey, explaining how to remain covered long-term, how to finish strong, and how heaven responds to those who do not turn back. Stay present. What comes next is not a warning. It is a commissioning. Beloved one, this is the sealing moment. Archangel Michael now stands not as a messenger of warning, but as a witness of completion. What began as an urgent alarm has become a consecrated turning point. Heaven marks this moment because you did not turn away. You listened. You aligned. You stayed. Archangel Michael says many hear warnings, but few allow those warnings to reshape them. You did. That is why this final word is not corrective. It is declarative. It declares what is now established over you. From this point forward, protection is no longer something you chase or fear losing. It becomes something you carry through alignment. You have learned how to listen early, respond quickly, and adjust humbly. These three traits form a covering stronger than constant intervention. Understand this clearly. God does not intend to keep pulling you back from edges. He intends to teach you how to walk with awareness so edges no longer surprise you. That is maturity. That is trust. Archangel Michael says your spirit has been recalibrated. You will notice it in how quickly you sense misalignment. You will notice it in how naturally you choose peace over impulse. You will notice it in how less reactive and more discerning you have become. These are not personality changes. They are signs of protection internalized. You are no longer guided only by external warnings. You are guided by internal alignment. This does not mean life will be free of challenges. It means challenges will no longer have authority to derail you. You will face them differently, with steadiness instead of panic, with clarity instead of confusion, with faith instead of fear. There is also a deeper promise being released now. What you preserve through obedience, God will preserve through covenant. When you choose alignment repeatedly, heaven responds with consistency. Not constant miracles, consistent covering. Archangel Michael says the greatest danger is not falling again, but forgetting how close you once were. Memory guards humility. Do not forget the urgency that woke you. Let it shape how seriously you guard peace, timing, and obedience going forward. You are being commissioned into a quieter strength, one that does not announce itself, one that does not argue for validation, one that walks forward steadily, trusting that God is both ahead of you and around you. This is also a call to finish well. Many start strong after a warning, but slowly relax back into assumption. You are not called to assumption. You are called to awareness. Awareness that is calm, not anxious. Fearful, not fearful. Archangel Michael says your life will now speak more loudly than your words. Others will notice your steadiness, your boundaries, your clarity. Some will be drawn to it. Some will resist it. Both reactions confirm growth. Do not shrink to be understood. Do not explain to be accepted. Walk aligned and let God handle interpretation. And hear this final assurance. Heaven is not watching you to catch mistakes. Heaven is watching you to support obedience. You are not under scrutiny. You are under covering. The warning is complete. The alignment is restored. The path is clear. Type "I walk under God's protection" in the comments if you receive this sealing word. Blessing code 1207 is now activated over your life. And now, hear this as a direct continuation of what has just been released. This message did not reach you by accident, and it is reaching others because light must travel faster than darkness. When you give through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal in the description, you are sowing directly into the spreading of God's warning, protection, and restoration across lives that may not get another wake-up call. I hear the Lord say, "Those who fund the voice that warns will never lack my covering." This is not charity. This is obedience made visible, seed released into eternal soil, fire carried from one heart to another. Do it now. Move in alignment. Heaven is watching, and heaven responds.